Today, we are going to do the chapter In the Kingdom of Fools from class 9th English supplementary textbook Moments. So students, this story is a Kannada folk tale from A.K. Ramanujan's Folk Tales from India. This story tells us about the extent to which idiocy, foolishness can ruin a person's life. So, In the Kingdom of Fools is a Kannada folk tale from A.K. Ramanujan's Folk Tales from India. So, this was a brief introduction about this story. Now, let's talk about the summary of this chapter. So, students, a long time ago, a guru and his disciple visited a strange city. A guru, along with his follower, student, disciple, visited a strange city. So, disciple means follower, or we can say a student. There, the king had declared the days to be nights and the nights to be days. Why? Because the king did not want to run things like other kings. He wanted to do something different. So there, in that strange city where a guru and his disciple visited, there the king had declared the days to be nights and the nights to be days. They ordered everyone to be awake at night, till their fields and run their businesses, and to go to bed as soon as the sun came up. So everything was upside down. People were ordered to be awake at night. They were ordered to till their fields and run their businesses. And they were ordered to go to bed as soon as the sun came up. Anyone who disobeyed would be punished with death. So this was the order of the king. So in order to save themselves from the wrath of the king, all the people slept in the day and they used to work at night because they were afraid of the king. They were afraid of the death penalty. So, to save themselves from the wrath of the king, all the people used to sleep in the day and they used to work at night. Even the cattle were taught to sleep in the day. Isn't that funny? Right. So, everybody was afraid of the king, and that's why they used to follow the instructions given by the king. So, talking about the guru and his disciple, when the guru and the disciple arrived, they did not find even a single person in the city. But as soon as the sun went down, people came out from their houses and went about their business. Another fascinating thing about the city was that everything, yes, literally everything, was sold at the cost of a single duddu. So there, the currency was known as duddu. Like here in India, what is the currency? Rupee. So in this strange city, the currency was known as duddu. So another fascinating thing about this strange city was that everything was sold at the cost of a single duddu, no matter what the quantity is. So no matter the quantity, everything was sold at the cost of a single duddu. Such an easy-going life and the cheap food available appealed to the disciple, and he decided to stay in the city. So the disciple got so excited by this fact that everything is sold at the cost of a single duddu. Plus, everything is so strange that he was very, very attracted. So what he decided? He decided to stay in the city. While his guru left the city because he was not very happy with everything going on in this strange city. He said that it was a kingdom of fools. It was a kingdom of foolish people and nobody knew what could happen in the future. And that's why the guru left the city. It so happened that one day a thief broke into a merchant's home. So now the author has introduced a sub-story in between the story to throw light on one of the incidents that happened in this strange city. So it so happened that one day a thief broke into a merchant's home and he died when the wall of the house fell on him. So when the thief was going back after doing his robbery, what happened? He died. Why? Because the wall of the house fell on him. The thief's brother appealed to the king to punish the merchant who had built such a weak wall. The merchant was summoned. He was called by the king. But the merchant again blamed the bricklayer for building such a weak wall. The king's messengers brought the bricklayer and his hands and foot were tied. The king decided to punish the bricklayer by death. But before the king could order the execution, the bricklayer blamed the dancing girl. So, first the thief's brother blamed the merchant. Then the merchant blamed whom? The bricklayer. And now the bricklayer blamed the dancing girl. He said that the wall was built badly as a dancing girl distracted him by walking up and down the street with her anklets jingling. So he could not concentrate while building the wall. So the dancing girl was also called and she was ordered by the king as guilty. But now the dancing girl blamed the jeweler for making her walk up and down the street as he did not make her jewelry on time. So the jeweler was called to the court by the king. But now the jeweler blamed the merchant's father for forcing him to make their jewelry before the dancing girl's jewelry. Finally, the king declared that the merchant was responsible for the thief's death. Yes, that same merchant who was blamed earlier by the thief's brother. So now again, the king declared that the merchant was responsible for the thief's death. The merchant said that it was not his fault, as his father, who had died years ago, had ordered the jewelry. But the king was not at all ready to listen and argued that if the merchant's father had died, somebody must be punished in his place. The merchant had inherited his father's riches as well as his sins. So that's why the king said that the merchant should be punished. He must be punished. So a new stake was prepared to punish the merchant. A stake is basically a strong wooden or metal post with a point at one end. It is basically used to execute a person. So a new stake was prepared to punish the merchant. But a new problem arose this time. What was the problem? The minister found that the merchant was too thin for the stake. The king and the minister decided to find a man fat enough to fit the stake. And the disciple became the scapegoat in all this commotion. He became the victim in all this confusion because he was so fascinated by the strange city. You remember, he was very fascinated by the strange city because everything was available on cheap rates, available at just one duddu. So that's why he ate a lot and he became fat. And now, when the king and the minister were looking for a fat man enough to fit the stake, the disciple became the victim in all this confusion. Now, the disciple remembered his guru's words that this was a city of fools. He prayed to his guru in his heart. He remembered his guru in his heart. The Guru had some magical powers. And as soon as he heard his disciple, he arrived to save him. As soon as he got to know that his disciple was in trouble, he arrived to save his disciple. He said something in his disciple's ears, and then both the Guru and the disciple started fighting among themselves to be executed. The king was puzzled, he was amused, he was shocked. And when he asked the reason, the Guru told him that the stake was new and thus was the stake of the God of justice. The person to be executed first on the stake would reborn as the king of this country, and the second person executed would reborn as the minister of the country. So, the king was convinced that the Guru and the disciple were fighting for this purpose only, because they wanted to reborn, they wanted to take birth again as the king and the minister of the country. So, listening to this conversation, the king postponed the execution to the next day. That night, the king and the minister discussed and decided to be executed in place of the Guru and his disciple, so as not to lose the kingdom to them. What they did next? They secretly went to the prison and they released the Guru and the disciple. They disguised themselves as the two so that the servants could take them to the stake. So they changed their appearances and they disguised themselves as the Guru and the disciple so that the servants could take them to the stake. Thus, the next day, the king and the minister were executed as per their wishes. When the people of the city came to know about their death, they became worried about the future of their city, and they decided to make the Guru and his disciple the new king and the new minister. It took a long time to convince the Guru. Yes, his disciple was immediately convinced. He wanted to become the minister. But it took a long time to convince the Guru. But he gradually agreed on one condition, that they could change all the old laws. You remember? Earlier, the day was the night and the night was the day. So, the Guru said that I can become a king, but on one condition, that I will change all the old laws. From then on, night would again be night and day would again be day. Nothing could be bought for a duddu. Everything was changed back to normal in the kingdom of fools. So students, this was an interesting summary of this story, isn't it? Did you enjoy the summary? Very good. So students, this was all about today's module.
Why they wanna move like that? Where you want